Thanks to Sana Skin Studio for supporting the No podcast. Sana is a skin studio that is shifting the relationship with your skin and your products through goal-driven facials, real guidance, and clean skincare. Stay tuned for our promo code so you can receive $25 off of your first facial at Sana Skin Studio. Welcome to the No podcast with me, Nikki Spo. Everybody, welcome to the No podcast, where it is not about knowing everything, but about coming to know ourselves. I'm your hostess, Nikki Spolstra, and I am so happy that you're here on this journey with me. If you are not already subscribed to the No, go ahead and click that subscribe button so that you never miss an episode. You know, we are on that continuous healing journey vibe. So today I am excited to introduce you to Cari Fund, who is a passionate advocate for women's empowerment and emotional healing. With a mission to inspire women to turn their pain into potential, Cari encourages them to be the women they were born to be and the parents that they never had. Her ultimate goal is to help women and mothers increase their emotional intelligence, create better human beings, and positively impact future generations. So with that, let's get into it. Cari, welcome to the No, where it is not about knowing everything, but about coming to know ourselves. I'm really happy that you're here.
Oh my gosh. Thank you, Nikki, so much for having me. And what an intro. I wish all of the things you just said, I wish I could go back and tell my younger self, it's going to be okay. One day you're going to be these things. So thank you so much. I really appreciate your time.
Of course. I have that moment all the time where I see pictures of myself, even 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 10 years ago from when I was a kid. And I'm like, I want to just hug her and be like, girl, you're going to be good. It all works out. You're going to be A-okay, you know?
Yeah, I know. I wish we were able to do that. I mean, sometimes when I think about what are some things I would even tell my teenage self, I just want to just say, do the work. You're going to be okay. It's going to be hard, but just do the work. But all of those things, those trials and tribulations are why I'm here today. And I'm grateful for the awareness and the choice that I made to heal.
I think a lot of things make sense in hindsight. I think everything sort of makes sense when you look back. I know for sure in my life anyway, when I've been going through really, really hard times, I'm like, why is this happening to me? Right? Or I'm like, God, why? Why God? Why me? Right? And then when I look back, I'm like, oh, this led to that led to that led to that led to here and now. And I think it's hard to kind of go through the things. But it's like that saying where you have survived 100% of the challenges that you faced in your life. So you can do these things.
100%. And, one of the things I take away, I feel like no matter what happens in life, if I go back to my childhood or my upbringing, you can find one good thing. I had two very toxic parents. My mother was always the victim, and she never sort of looked at what happened to her in life and learned from it and moved on. She's still, if I were to call her today, she'd still be in the same place 30 years ago in the same storyline. So one thing I take away from my upbringing is that always take pain, make it push you forward. Don't stay in the past. And if my mother taught me anything with her lack of mothering, it is leading, by example with that.
And that's so hard because it's we all come to the table of parenting with our own baggage, right? And I do think that it is the generation before us that they weren't talking about these things, because I can say the very same thing about my mom too. I know through my mom's sister some of the things that happened to my mom, and I remember when my aunt finally disclosed some of the horrible things that happened to my mom when my mom was little, it didn't make it okay, what she did to me. But I was like, oh my God. I started thinking about my mom as if she were a tiny baby, that she didn't deserve the things that happened to her. And I even though I remained estranged from her, I was able to have a sort of empathy and understanding about why she was the way she was without making it okay that she treated me the way that she did. And when I was able to do that, it helped me a lot. But to your point, I think that people are starting to talk about the things. My mom never talked about it. She never told anybody about it. She didn't get help. She just stayed in that victim mindset, like you're saying your mom did. And I can see that you are not doing that. I am not doing that. Like, I am going on the healing journey. I'm like, I don't want to do that. Now, here's the thing is that I'm sure I'm still fucking up my kids in some capacity.
We all are, but there's no
all relative. It's all relative, right? Like, I might be like light years better than either one of my parents were, but like their reality is their reality. It's like whatever their worst case scenario is, even if in a really, really healthy home, is still carries weight in their little lives. Just like the very, very best case scenario holds that really beautiful weight in their little lives. So we have to be so gentle with ourselves as parents because like there is no perfect parent. I'm sure I'm messing them up in something. I'm sure I yelled probably more than once, like, you know, like that they're like gonna have ingrained in their brain, well, mommy was in the car overwhelmed and she turned around and said, shut up one time. And that's going to be what sticks with them, you know, and they're going to have to do some deep healing over it. But at least our generation, people like you and me, that we're trying to overcome the things, we're trying to learn and better ourselves. And you're not only doing that, but you're talking about it, you're amplifying it, you are writing a book. So, and I wanted to talk about some of the significant achievements you've had in your career, like writing a book. So tell us about that.
Well, I mean, the book that I'm writing now, I'm shopping around, and honestly, I believe it's the book I was born to write. Back in like 2010 and 12, I wrote 2 novels. And it's so interesting. If I were to go back and read those books, it's me really hiding behind characters.
Girl.
Pain keeps you silent and shame keeps you so silent. And my eating disorder was born probably when I was like 9 years old, all the way through my 20s. And, you know, then you start to like have too many martinis and you start numbing. And I really just came to a point where like I wanted to turn the volume up on my voice. I wanted to just like start dissolving some of the shame. And what better way to do it than hide behind characters? So I just started like writing stories, and I didn't know where they would go, but it was sort of like a secret release for me. Even after all that, I mean, today I started probably 2 years ago on really, you know, healing. My estrangement from my mother started almost 15 years ago. And I've been doing a ton of work, but truly being honest with myself probably started 2 years ago when I started working on this book. I'm putting it all out there. I'm shopping this book around. And in the meantime, I launched this Instagram platform on toxic parenting and healing. And honestly, I never thought I would be talking about these things. These are things that have caused me so much suffering in my life, but I made the choice, like, I don't want to carry it anymore. And I'm not telling people you have to go and start talking about it online, but start doing small little things to help you shift. It's all about the tiny little shifts. And get a therapist, talk to your friends. Like, don't carry these things with you, shame, secrets, disappointment, pain, because it's going to come out in everything in your life and it's going to take joy. It's also, if you're a mom and you have kids, your past is going to parent your children. So again, like you said, listen, I'm no way the perfect mom. I yell at my kids all the time, but the difference between a healthy mom that has self-awareness and compassion compared to a toxic mom is that I say, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Shouldn't have yelled. I'm sorry that I lost my SHIT or whatever you say to your kids. I'm sorry. I should not have said that to you. And I want you to know that I'm sorry. This is not your fault. And that, I mean, honestly, I'm 46 years old and I've never heard I'm sorry from my parents. Still to this day. My mom, I no longer talk to. My father is a huge part of my life. Like, he respected my boundaries and I see him on a weekly basis. But I've never heard I'm sorry.
Right.
So
I can totally relate to that.
Sorry could go a long way, don't you think, Nikki?
I apologize to my kids so much. I don't know if that's because I freak the fuck out so much, but like, but when I do have the moment, you know, where I'm like, oh shit, I didn't like how I did that as a mom. Like, that doesn't feel right for me. I pull them aside and I'm like, I am so sorry, you know, and then it's the reconciliation of it, right? Like, hey, you know what I also tell my kids? I'm like, listen, you guys, I have 3 of you and this is my first time being a mom and I'm learning everything. Just like you're learning how to like move around in the world. And, you know, my oldest son is 6, so he can kind of grasp this. But I'm like, just like you're learning things at school and this is your first time learning a lot of things. Like, this is my first time having a 6-year-old. I tell them that. I wasn't a mommy my whole life. Like, I'm learning and I'm going to make mistakes and I'm so sorry. But I just want you to know that we're going to work through it together. I love you. This wasn't your fault. And every day I'm trying to be a better mommy.
And that's beautiful. I mean, we put all of this pressure on ourselves and we have this whole perfect mom syndrome. But at the end of the day, like, the kids just want a happy mom. Like they don't go to bed at night praying like, oh, I hope my mommy is perfect tomorrow. They want to see us happy because when we're happy, they're happy. And at the end of the day, like as mothers, we lead by example. So if I want my children to have self-awareness, to understand what it means to love yourself, to have empathy, to know the importance of rest and balance, I have to embody those things. I have to show them. I can't sit here and be like, a toxic effing asshole parent and then teach them like, where's your compassion? Where is your patience? You have to embody the very things. And forgiveness and making mistakes is huge in raising kids. I make mistakes all the time and I tell them, these are my mistakes and I'm going to learn from them. And I'm sorry that I did this, this, and that. And that's okay. And when they make mistakes in life, they're going to know it's okay to apologize as well.
Absolutely. So you said a couple of things that I wanted to touch on. I actually took notes while you were talking. You talked about how like the shift happens, and it's so wild because I don't know if you listened to the episode that I did with Melody Godfred. She wrote a book called The Shift, and she talks exactly about that, right? About there being a moment where you do shift into this newness, right? And it is like a really transformative time in any person's life. And I think that has a lot to do with like the deep sense of inner knowing that this whole show is based on, as I think that a lot of us long for that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. On your point about writing a book and like hiding behind characters, I remember there was a time in my life where I lived for a long time, like a very public life. It's weird because like I am a private person, but
I know.
in a kind of public way. It's kind of weird. It's hard to explain it. But like I remember talking to a family member and I really looked up to this woman, and I remember being like, I want to write a book someday. Like, I want to write a book about the things that I've been through, and I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I just feel like I need to talk about these things. And she was like, well, you could theoretically write a book, but you would have to do it under an alias because you can't embarrass. You can't be you.
Yeah.
So like that was the message, is you can't be you. Okay. And like, I'm not here for that. Like, I'm so tired of hiding behind the character. And I'm sure on some level, so are you. You were like, it's time for me not to hide behind the characters of these novels that I'm writing. And I'm just going to do the book that that you were born to write.
100%. First, I just want to say, congratulations for even having that thought. And by the way, I've had a conversation with you prior to this. I think you should definitely write a book. And during our last conversation, I envisioned the opening of your book that I do want to share with you.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
You need to write a story, and we'll have to have a side conversation on this because I have some suggestions for you. I think you need to do this, Nikki. Listen, everyone has a story.
I'm flipping at my hair right now. I'm so happy to
Everyone has a story to tell, and your story needs to be out there and to just inspire women and mothers from so many different aspects. I mean, you really do have something for everyone. And I think you need to explore that. And, I'm sorry that that's the response that you got because I can relate. Like, I have had close family members my whole life since I was estranged from my mother. And about a year and a half ago, everyone was okay when I was like, writing my essays and writing my book. And then I started this platform. And can I tell you?
It pisses people off, right?
They've backed away from me. And these are people who sort of replaced and mothered me when my mother hasn't been around. And it's just been sort of like a silent backing, like calls go from like daily to weekly to monthly. And now I didn't even hear from anyone on Mother's Day. And it's just so interesting. But it's like, by my own healing and my own self-awareness, I realized a lot of people I looked up to in my life growing up because they weren't like toxic as my mother or toxic in the same way. I realized, wow, there was a lot of generational trauma. It didn't stop in my mother. I started to see and notice where a lot of things have traveled through all these family members. And it's time that, I'm validating myself. And if I need something, I'm looking inside for the answers. And I'm going to myself for feedback or other people in my community that truly understand what it means to be able to speak up and speak out and not be shamed for doing so.
I think it's really interesting and fascinating to see who sticks around when you start to speak your truth.
Yeah.
Because some people really, really don't like it. There was a time where my dad got so mad that I was like, speaking about certain things that happened in my childhood. And, like, everybody knows my dad is like super involved in my life. Like, if you go to my Instagram, like, it's not fake. Like, that is the real deal. Like, I just asked my dad to be my date to like this FIU alumni board association thing. And he was like, I would be honored. My dad is legitimately like one of the best men that I know, right? But he's not a perfect person. So in my journey of expressing myself via my podcast and like talking about some of the things that happen, he gets pissed.
Yeah.
Pissed. Yeah. Like,
does he listen to your podcast?
Oh yeah. I told him, I'm like, stop listening. I'm like, don't listen. You're going to get pissed off. You have your subjective reality of how something happened. I have my subjective reality about how something happened. So it's better for everybody. Just don't listen. Just don't listen to it.
Yeah.
Just don't. On that note, you know, I was thinking about this the other day in the shower. Maybe it was yesterday because I was thinking about like what we were going to chat about and everything. And I was thinking about like teaching people how to start a podcast, right?
Yeah.
And I was thinking about how there's this meme floating around out there that it's like, girl, you don't need a podcast. You need a therapist, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's so true. I like, just so everybody knows, like I'm in therapy also. I don't just come out here to like emotionally dump on people, but I will say something over the course of the time that I've had this platform, which has been 3 years. I know, first of all, that like, yes, this is a way of me sharing parts of my journey, but I believe that by doing so, you're building a sense of community, right? So it's not just an emotional dumping of what I've been through. Like, yeah, girl, you need a therapist. Me having this has been actually incredibly healing for me, right? So the things that I was able to talk about in the beginning when I started my show are completely, it's not that they're completely different because a lot of the topics are the same, but it's like the energy behind it shifts, right? And you come back to that word, like the shift. And so for people out there like yourself who have platforms and podcasts that are talking about the things that are difficult, it's like we are serving a larger community. We're building a community of people that like, I know that that's how I stayed sober. I stayed sober by the power of shared experience, right? But it also was really healing for me too.
So that you bring up such a good point, because I don't think a lot of people realize this for me since I'm newer at this. I'm healing in real time.
Yes, exactly.
This is all like, not something that happened 20 years ago and we're just like dumping our emotions into a pool of whatever. It's healing. It's therapeutic. Maybe someone like me who's never been to therapy but is definitely going to. It's not that I'm against it. I just, not at all. I just haven't made the time. And honestly, I've been so busy showing up as authentic as I can with like honesty and grace on my platforms and for my podcast. I'm having conversations like I am with you, and you know, I'm connecting with you and I'm feeling validated in things, and this is healing. So it's just, you know, to go online and to constantly be bombarded by so many things that affect our mental health in a negative way or make us feel less worthy or less perfect. I mean, more people should show up as their authentic self. And again, we don't have to be these perfect, like, you're this mom and you're that mom and this is your womanhood journey and that's your motherhood journey. Like, everyone has a different journey and they're all valid in their own ways. For people to say, you know, just dumping on people, I don't know, maybe it's triggering. Maybe it's triggering to them.
So true. I never thought about it that way.
It's triggering because I know sometimes when I've gotten like negative comments and things like that, I pause. I never respond. And I just pause and I think, wow, if this is either a toxic parent that I've triggered and is like speaking out to like sort of shame me, or it's someone that's just, you know, not there yet. And that's okay.
I wanted to mention something because you were talking about like, how do you teach your kids empathy if you can't like demonstrate it? I have an example that happened the other day that was like so cool. My kids have co-parents. So obviously they live with me and they live with their other parent separately, right? So I don't know what goes on over there. I only know what goes on over here. But I like to think that like based on some of the things that I see my kids doing, they're getting what they need in both of their homes. And that makes me incredibly happy and grateful. So my one son, my two boys go to different schools, right? And so one of them had a play at school to celebrate a Jewish holiday. And we were talking, I was going to go to the play and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited for you. You're going to play this character in the play and don't forget your line. And I'm so excited. This is such a big deal. Like, you're so special. You know, I'm doing all this stuff. And my other son is hearing this. And so they're like, okay, good luck. You know, whatever, we move on. I go to the play. I go pick up my older son from school. It's the little son who was doing the play. I go to pick up my older son from school and I'm in the carpool line. He gets in the car. He says, hi, mommy. how was Dante's play? And I'm like, what? Like, hi? You've been thinking about this all day? Like, and it was just such a moment that I'm like, dude, he's such a good guy. I'm like, you're such a good guy. First, for the record, my little one would be like over his head. It would be like way over his head. So it's like, it's not, like a cut and dry, like just a formula. But whatever that guy is like taken in from his parents, his teachers, his coaches, his extended family, I was just like, wow.
That's amazing.
I'm like, I don't know if I taught you to be like that, but
I think that you did. And
I'm like, whether it came from me or someone else, take it.
No, I think you did. And honestly, the fact that you even noticed it, imagine all of these people that haven't healed and they're just toxic and they're so self-involved parents and their victim mentality and they're just spreading their pain even onto their children. Like, I think that's a beautiful moment that is what you noticed when your son asked that question.
What's the first thing he said when he got in the car? I'm like, oh my gosh, have you been, like, in my mind, I'm like, have you just been thinking about, like, how's he doing all day long? Like, my little brother has a play. That was so cute.
So cute.
I know. I was like, yay.
Doing a great job.
All right, guys, let's take a quick break so I can thank our sponsor, Sana Skin Studio, with their OG location in Wynwood and their additional locations in Fort Lauderdale and Coconut Grove. Okay, so the best way I can describe Sana is that it feels like coming home. Unlike traditional facials, Sana's facials are rooted in education, and I love this so much. Every experience I have had at Sana has been a chance for me to learn more about my skin and its needs. I love that the facials are effective while also being accessible enough to be a monthly ritual rather than a yearly splurge. This is why the Sana membership is so great. I'm honored to be able to provide our audience with a promo code. Use the code THENOGLOW for $25 off of your first facial when booking at sanaskinstudio.com and additional incentives if you book a membership. I have absolutely loved my skin healing journey with Sana Skin Studio. Cari, how many kids do you have?
I have 2. I have a daughter that's 9 and a son that's 6.
Talk to me about being a helicopter mom, or a retired one anyway, but you had to start as one in order to be a retired one now. So what the fuck happened? I'm definitely not
going to give myself the credit of retired. I'm recovering.
You're recovering. Okay.
Well, I'm recovering. And honestly, I've always had anxiety. And I think that stems from trauma and my childhood. And when I became a mom, it multiplied.
Doesn't it do that?
Oh, it multiplied. And I was such a helicopter mom. I mean, when the moment my kids were born, like I had already told my husband to tell the hospital, like, they are not to leave the room. Everything, unless there is an emergency, my children everything needs to be done in the room in my presence. Like, I would not even let my newborn babies out of my sight. I parented like that for a while. And then I just remember being on a trip when my daughter was like 4 and my son was like 1 or whatever. And we were somewhere on an island and they wanted to swim with stingrays. And she's like, oh, mommy will never do this because we could die. And also, mommy's not going to let us do this. It's too scary. And I literally choked back tears. And I thought, wow, I'm already transferring my anxiety onto my children.
Wow.
And I thought, for somebody who doesn't want their past to parent their kids, there's so many other toxic things I can be doing besides everything like my mother, it's my anxiety. So I decided at that moment, I literally threw on a mask, and I am terrified of the ocean. I jumped into that water. I choked back tears in my mask, and I swam with these mushroom-sized creatures that I thought, oh my God, please don't make me die. It was terrifying, but I wanted my kids to see me as a calm, strong mom that will do anything. And I have to tell you, like, after that trip, I just started becoming more aware of my anxiety, and I started letting go a little bit and doing small things, those small shifts. I started working on my self-awareness. I started meditating and slowing down. When you're constantly in helicopter mode, my numbing is keeping busy, staying in chaos, or I can't feel anything. And that just fueled the helicopter. So I slowed down. I started saying no more to things and yes more to myself. And I just tried to be more present, and little by little, I am calming down. Like, I'm slowly calming down, and I'm letting go, because they need their space just in their independence, just like I do. I'm all about toxic parenting awareness. Well, transferring my anxiety onto my children, it's going to manifest into anxiety and God knows what in them.
I think about anxiety a lot because I'm like, am I anxious or am I just like operating from a place of fear and my upbringing? Like, am I anxious or is my environment like genuinely stimulating this anxiety?
Yeah.
And I've had to remove myself from a lot of situations, big situations where I'm like, you know what? Like maybe I'm not this anxious really underneath it. Maybe my environment induces anxiety.
100%.
I have to say, Cari, once I changed my environment, all of a sudden I do feel less anxious.
Yeah.
I feel more at peace. I really do. And I don't think it's a mistake.
I think that's a good tip for people to listen to that are hearing you now is that environment is huge. I mean, and if you're feeling that way in your environment, imagine what's your little kids are feeling. Do you know what I mean?
Totally. And like my kids even know, right? Like I always get checked in this moment where like I notice myself starting to get like anxious or flustered. It's usually flustered, right? Like overwhelmed. Like I'm overtouched, overstimulated, overhearing my mommy, this one I'm talking to an adult, mommy, and I might make a face or something. And like my kids will be like, are you upset? But I'm like proud on one level because I always tell them to check in and not assume that somebody's upset, that you should check in with someone. Hey, are you feeling sad? Hey, are you feeling, oh, you look so excited. Are you excited? Right? So this is how I try to talk to them. But like, so while I'm like, oh, good, they're checking in with me to see.
That's great.
Right. On one level. But then conversely, I'm like, number one, they're children. It's not their responsibility. Right. Number two, I'm like, oh shit, they know when I'm flustered because of a facial expression and they're like on alert and I get tripped out over that stuff. I'm like, shit. And that's when I realize, okay, girl, you got to work on that, like not that like you can't be yourself, but like sometimes I'm like, man, I need to work on my poker face a little bit. And underneath that, Cari, it's not working on the poker face. It's working on more being like less shakeable.
Yeah.
Right. And more secure in myself so that I am not so easily frazzled by the wind when the wind changes.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, listen, I do want to say kudos to you though, because, coming from a toxic upbringing, I always saw expression.
Right. That's what makes me freak out.
No, Nikki, your child said to you, are you upset? Like they checked in with you. I never would have asked. I would have shut down, became silent, stayed in my space. I would not have asked because I would have been too scared to know the answer or to be yelled at. So at the same time, they're not really carrying your baggage. I don't think they're just checking in with their mommy and they're not scared to ask you how you're feeling. Now, you don't need to say, I'm having a rough day. This is
right.
Right. But you could be like, oh my gosh, thank you for checking in on mommy. Yes, everything is fine or something like that. But I think it's amazing that your kids asked you how you're feeling. I mean, they're going to be amazing little adults, really.
I do sometimes tell them, though, I'll be like, you know what? I am actually a little bit overwhelmed right now, but that's okay because like being overwhelmed is like part of life sometimes and we'll get through it. Give me 5.
I yelled at my kids at bedtime last night because my husband's traveling. He's gone for 3 days. He's coming back the very night that I'm leaving to go on a business trip for New York, which I rarely travel. And I'm like trying to get ready for New York. I have 2 kids, 2 schedules. And I don't have any help. I don't have a village. So it hit me last night at 6 p.m. when they were fighting at dinner. I was like, oh my gosh, eat your food. And we're going to do the bedtime and go to sleep. And they just fought all the way up the steps and all the way up. And I literally was like screaming, like, guys, I've asked you 20 times. And then I went into my room and I thought, I'm just getting triggered because I know what it's like not to be listened to my whole life, like by my own parents. A couple deep breaths. I probably went on Instagram and liked a couple stories, did a face, washed my face, literally all in 5 minutes and went out. I was like, I'm sorry, mommy's just feeling overwhelmed. Daddy's not here. And I just am like trying to do too many things at once. Let's get into bed and read some books. And we had a great night. You know what I mean? But it happens.
Yeah.
We're also human.
Well, that's right. So what's been your experience in balancing motherhood while you're healing yourself?
The first thing I have realized, because I learned the hard way, I never made myself a priority in my mothering until 2 years ago. And I think that's because I was a people pleaser and I wanted to be a perfect mom because I grew up as a perfectionist, trying to, get the love of my parents and things like that. So I had to undo a lot of things. But the first thing I honestly needed to do was create space for myself. And that meant saying no to a lot of things. Like, I can't be involved in every classroom, every function. I can't be everywhere. If I'm going to have the time to have some me time, to heal and to work on myself, I'm going to need that time. And it's going to have to come from somewhere. And I realized when I made myself a priority, it never has ever taken any love away from my family whatsoever.
Isn't that right?
It doesn't take away love at all. That's just a lie I told myself because I was probably fearful of doing the work because the work is fucking hard.
It is hard.
End of the day, what's the alternative? It is to stay the way that I am and to fuck up my own kids, or to give them a happy mom and the mom they deserve, and to give myself like the life I deserve. And, to be the parent I never had and to make my past count for something. So I think giving yourself the space, because every mom you will hear say, I don't have time, and you have time. Even if it's small shifts and it's 10 minutes a day, you have 10 minutes a day. And it's little by little, you can heal. And it really has transformed my parenting.
That's so important. And I think that when you're in a partnership, when you live in a 2-parent home, you really do have to have intentionality and buy-in from your teammate, right? From your spouse or from your live-in partner, where you're like, this is how we are going to function. We need to do this and be on these terms. It's a totally different ball game when you're co-parenting. I always say, I'm like, my kids go for X amount of days and I'm here by myself and there's so many things that I can do, and I always say this because it's I don't want to come off as if I'm advocating for divorce, but I think that when a family unit decides that route is what's going to be best for their family unit, because they're a family no matter what.
100%.
When you decide that that's the best route to take, I think that there are so many ways that can work for both people, right? So on the days that I don't have my kids, I'm like, okay, I'm focused on my business. I'm focused on my mental health. I'm focused on these things. And I might not be able to do that as much because when I'm with my kids, I'm all in, right? I'm going hard, and I can be.
Yeah.
But I think that when you're in a 2-parent home, right, you have to be able to work with your spouse on creating those boundaries for each other, because your spouse needs it also, right? Because everybody's operating, everybody's going full speed, everybody's on their mission. Moms need it, dads need it. And I think that you definitely need to be able to, in a space where you can have open and honest conversations with your partner about making yourself a priority. Because especially as a woman, I think that women stereotypically, right? Let's acknowledge that this is not one size fits all, but I think that women stereotypically are the caretakers of the family, right? And we serve the family. We are taking care of everybody. We are monitoring everybody's schedule. We are the ones making the plans and putting the things in and figuring out. And I know exactly what was in my kid's lunchbox, and I know what can be and what can't be, and what just the minutia of all of it.
You said two things. First of all, when you're mothering and you're healing, every situation is different. And when I started this journey a long time ago, before I was married, my husband met my mother. he and my father was at my wedding. My mother wasn't, but so he knows where I'm coming from. And 2 years ago, when I really started diving in and I started telling him I'm writing this book and things like that, he has to be on the same page, and he was willing to be on the same page because I'm the mother of his kids. And if I'm happy, he knows they're going to be happier. So he never wanted an unhealed, mom that's suffering and has pain mentoring his kids. So he's been on board, and we've really had to work together to allow myself to have more time and things like that, because I don't ask for help a lot. I could have people helping me, and one day maybe I will, but that comes from my upbringing of trusting people. I have major trust issues. But one thing I wanted to mention to you is that you just said is you're not promoting divorce, just like I'm not promoting estrangement. You have to do what's healthy for the family unit. So
exactly.
Not we're promoting these things. We're just promoting empowerment. So whatever works for your family unit and allows you to be the best person you're supposed to be, the best parent you're supposed to be, and that we go back to environment, a healthy, loving environment for our kids. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. That takes a lot of courage.
And let's take a minute to shout out your mans, because like the men who are stepping up and like standing alongside their women when they need help, they're what's up. You know, like that's big, because
it's like whatever it takes for her not to be like that.
So, I mean, but it takes like a really tapped in spouse to be able to like see you sitting in your shit. Like, it's not pretty. You know what I mean? It takes somebody who's really tapped in, who's really invested, really committed to help you through the things that you're going through.
It does. And I've never actually shared this with anyone, but my husband my boyfriend he was my boyfriend at the time. He actually, I can still see it. We were sitting in his East Village apartment, and I remember being on the phone with my mom, and it was the very last call I ever had with her. So he was like there, and we'd only been dating for a couple months. And he literally saw me break up with my mom. And it was, he's seen it all.
Well, kudos for him for stepping up and being with you on the journey. So, but while we're talking about relationships, like, what is your take on navigating and sharing relationships and family life on social media? Because, like, obviously, I mean, in the past, I shared a little bit about my relationship. You know, it wasn't like overwhelming, but I'm a mom and they're part of like my life, you know, and it's just a tricky thing.
I don't know. It's a balance. I mean, honestly, you're the CEO of your life. So I don't think there's any wrong way or right way. It's your way. Everybody runs their family units, their companies, their social media differently. And I think you just have to do what's best for you and show up in the most honest, authentic way that you can to connect with your community and just to have grace through it all. I mean, I don't know. I've learned I don't really worry about people judging me because I try not to judge others. That's all comes with the dissolving of perfectionism and things like that. So just trying to do better. But yeah, I think you just have to show up in what feels good for you, because everybody is their own CEO of their life.
We're here in Miami. Like, do you think it's hard to stay authentic in a city like ours?
First, I want to start by saying I love Miami. I love where I live. I feel grateful for living here and raising my kids here. Once you've tapped into your power and you have the self-awareness and you truly know what authenticity means and you're living authentically,
for you, right?
I don't think it's hard to stay authentic. I think it's hard to stay, like, if you're on a healing journey or if you're trying to better yourself. I feel like it is hard. I mean, listen, Miami is a very unique backdrop. There's amazing energy, and it's like a social media dream. But, you know, I think it's hard to stay genuine in any process that you have, because there's a lot of distraction here, you know, there's a lot of distraction. And I feel like the majority really is living one way. And yeah, it's hard. Like, I've had to, you know, these past 2 years, I definitely have taken a step back with things. Socializing means something different for me here. I don't say yes to a lot of things because I have different priorities now. And if those things disrupt those priorities, you know, my sleep, my family time, or just not feeling anxious in settings where, like, I need to drink a lot because I'm nervous, or it just disrupts any of my shifts that I've been doing that have brought me healing and joy. It's just saying no. And then it's just getting over like that fear of missing out. But then, you know, one day I realized it's Miami. There's so much going on all day long. Like, I don't know if you could ever really miss out on anything. Like, it just is constantly happening on repeat.
I have JOMO. I have like the joy of missing out. I've become like not that I'm a homebody, because like on one end, I'm such a girly girl and I want to like get dressed up. Like, right? I love to get dressed. I love a moment to get dressed up. It's part of my creativity, you know, and I used to like have like beefs about this, like, because I think for some people it's perceived as being superficial, when really it's like a form for me of self-expression, right? I just really like to do it. And when I was a little girl, I legitimately thought that I was going to grow up and be like the female version of John Galliano for Dior. And then like I went to fashion school and I was like, oh, I'm really not that good at this as good as I thought I was. But I'm like, here I am. Like, I love the moment to get dressed up, you know, and I'm a very creative individual. I love dance, art, all that stuff. So I love a getting ready moment, right? But I'm also like, can I get ready and then stay home? And like, can you just get ready and then get back into bed? Like, because that sounds like a dream to me.
Yes. First of all, I love all of the things that you share. Like, sometimes I'm still sitting in the same like different outfit, but same color, black workout clothes and some kind of jacket to keep the sun off of me. And I'm like, oh my God, her outfit's so cute. Or, oh my God, that's so cute. And then I'm still sitting in my own thing. But I'm like, one day maybe I'll get more inspired to like go to carpool like that or to do that. But yes, I love getting dressed up for those like special occasions and things like that. But I think it's amazing. I mean, it feels good to feel good. So do what makes you feel good.
It does. But I'm saying like, I don't have the fear of missing out. I just want to get dressed up.
But even if you're walking around your house feeling like, you're in it to win it, like good for you.
Where did you go in that outfit, Nikki? No, girl, nowhere.
Like in my office?
I'm in my office. I'm here doing office hours, like in my cute outfit. I'm not going anywhere. Mary, I have loved talking to you. Where can people find you?
You can find me online at carifund.com and on Instagram as well, carifund.com.
Cari, you are amazing. I think you're awesome. I love to see you healing and recovering, and especially doing so in a public way that feels accessible to other people, other women, because I know that that's inspiring so many people. Like people you don't even know. Like you don't even know who you're inspiring. So kudos to you for doing that, for being on the journey and for sharing your journey.
Thank you for having me and holding space, and thank you for everything that you're doing.
This podcast was brought to you by Sana Skin Studio. Be sure to use my code, TheNoGlow, for $25 off of your first facial at Sana when booking via sanaskinstudio.com. More than a skin studio, Sana is a movement towards healthier skin and self-love. Thank you so much for listening to The Know. If you loved this episode, go ahead and share it with a friend. Words are so powerful, and someone may need to hear what we covered today. And if you really loved this episode, please take a moment to rate the show and leave a review. Your comments are so important and valued, and they give other listeners insight on what to expect on The Know. You can connect with me personally via Instagram at Nikki Sap Spo and The Know with Nikki Spo. My hope for you today is that you are fearless in looking inward so that you can be your highest, most authentic self and go after the life of your dreams.